I transmigrated into a dead person's literature, became the real heiress who was unloved by her parents and abducted since childhood. No matter what I said, no one would believe me. Instead, they were convinced I had malicious intentions to frame the fake heiress. It wasn't until I committed suicide due to cancer that they finally woke up to the truth, crying, regretting, and missing me. The system exclaimed excitedly. After your death, they can never have you again. From now on, the rest of their lives will be filled with pain and regret. You used your life to take revenge on them, making them lose their beloved forever. I frowned. Cancer, dead person literature, turned around and slit my throat, became a vengeful ghost. By the time I crossed over, the story was already nearing its end. The biological daughter endured her mother's cold stares, her father's scoldings, her brother's mockery, and the false daughter's slander and schemes. In the end, the parents were healthy. The brother was young and promising, and the false daughter lived a peaceful and happy life. Meanwhile, the heroine who represented truth, kindness, and beauty was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The system chattered beside me. Host, don't worry, this is just the setup. 5 more days, and it will be your 20th birthday. Your parents will attend the celebration banquet for the fake heiress, ignoring you completely. At this moment, you leave a suicide note revealing all the truth. Then take pills to end your life. By the time your parents come to see you again, all they'll find is your cold, lifeless body. This move kills both the body and the soul, making them regret their actions and weep bitterly. I interrupted. Kills both the body and the soul, let alone whether you've destroyed their souls. What about the actual killing part? The system choked, exclaiming, killing? How could you even think of killing? You are the embodiment of truth, goodness, and beauty. You must forgive them, so that after your death, they will suffer even more. They must live well, of course, so they can spend the rest of their lives drowning in pain. How noisy! I ignored the system's incessant chatter. I surveyed the entire hospital room. The floor was damp and moldy. The iron frame of the bed rusted. Water dripped from the windowsill, leaving murky streaks behind. In that dark, damp corner, a plump insect crawled with its bristles. The entire house exuded an atmosphere of gloom and lifelessness. The female lead's family was immensely wealthy, yet she ended up in this hospital ward, all because her parents, swayed by the false heiress's instigation, believed the female lead was feigning illness and being unreasonable, so they cut off her living expenses. The only one who knew the female lead's true condition, the fake heiress, used her connections to arrange for the female lead to be admitted to a private, unscrupulous hospital. This hospital had no proper license, and countless wronged souls had died under its scalpels. I smiled faintly. Perfect, a hospital filled with wronged souls, a ward with terrible location, and what's more, I'm wearing a bright red dress. The system keeps shouting, after you die, they can never have you again. From then on, the rest of their lives will be filled with nothing but pain and regret. This whole, after I die, they all go mad, drama is absolutely thrilling. I asked coldly, how much longer can I live if I don't take the medicine? The system replied, half a month, no difference at all. I stared straight at the mirror opposite the bed. The mirror shattered into pieces, reflecting my pale and haggard figure. This was deliberately placed here by the fake heiress, so that the female lead could see her own appearance, ravaged by illness, at every moment. I picked up the fruit knife beside me and sliced my palm. The system paused for a moment, then exclaimed excitedly, Host, are you planning to self-harm? Excellent. After your death, they'll discover the wounds on your body, pushing their guilt to its peak. But don't damage your face. Your countenance in death should remain as pure and flawless as an angel's. Only then can their guilt be most effectively provoked. But soon, the system fell silent. It watched as I drew obscure and eerie symbols on the mirror. Host, what are you trying to do? The midnight bell tolled. Before the system could stop me, I picked up the knife. I slashed it across my neck. Blood sprayed out. After a few seconds of silence, the system let out a sharp, piercing scream. No, dying in such an ugly way will only make them think you're crazy, only make them despise you more. You should have swallowed pills and died peacefully and saintly on your birthday. Push the emotions to their peak. Your mission has failed. Suddenly, its voice turned suspicious and alarmed. What is this? Before the mirror, I twist my body, emerging from the pool of blood. Before transmigrating into this book, I was already a wild ghost wandering the world. The system watched this scene unfold but didn't dare to speak. I let out a soft sigh. A cold wind burst through the window, It rustled the medical records on the cabinet noisily. Finally, it settled on one page. It's the home address left by the fake heiress Sarah as a relative. What are you going to do? The system finally snapped out of it and asked me. I replied cheerfully, complete the so-called mission. After I died, they all went mad. Sarah pressed the elevator button, the elevator light flickered on and off, the flickering hurt her eyes, and she couldn't help but complain. It seems the property management of this Riverside View community isn't as good as rumored. Forget it, anyway, that bitch doesn't have many days left. By then, she'll become the only heiress of the James family. When the time comes, her adoptive parents will naturally get her a better house. The thought of that bitch's bloodless face made her feel somewhat relieved. Drip, the elevator doors opened. Sarah lowered her head, replying to messages as she stepped out. Plop, something hit her forehead. It didn't hurt. The texture felt like fabric, yet sticky. She looked up, a stumble, at the elevator entrance. A safety doll hung by a black rope. Its coarse cloth head drooped, blood seeping from the cotton inside. Pale yet tinged with red, Sarah had seen this doll before. At the age of 12, as an outstanding student, she went to a remote mountain village in a poverty-stricken county of a neighboring city to visit rural children. She hated this activity. The mountains were damp, with no running water or electricity, and vile insects crawled everywhere. She came here only to please her adoptive parents. On the first day of the event, the school arranged for the rural children to give them handmade gifts. The girl who gave her the gift kept her head down, too shy to speak. The gift was a peace doll, with a protective charm tied around its neck by a black string. The fabric used was rough, but the careful stitching showed the effort put into it. It doesn't matter, she'll just throw it in the trash after the event anyway. She casually caught the doll, making the girl lift her head. Plop, the doll fell to the ground. She was shocked to see that the country girl had a scar on her forehead. It was exactly the same as the real missing heiress of the James family in the legend. She scrutinized carefully. The girl's skin was terribly tanned, but her facial features. The facial features resembled those in the photos, just more mature. 10 days later, the adoptive parents would attend the closing ceremony of the event. They would meet this little girl. No, absolutely not. Why did you have to appear before her? No one can take away what she has now. Sarah smiled and reached out to the girl. Come, let's go play in my room. There are lots of toys I brought with me. The story that followed was simple. The girl was falsely accused of stealing and was immediately expelled from school. The fake father, drunk, swung his belt and dragged the girl home. Tick, tock, blood seeped from my skirt, dripping onto the floor. Sarah pointed at the blood that had appeared out of nowhere, her expression shifting from shock to anger. Who did this? Jenny, was it you? Stop playing these ghostly tricks on me. She stomped her foot hard, stepping into the pool of blood. Did you hurt yourself again? Is this blood on the floor yours? It's useless. No matter how much you hurt yourself, no one will care about you. They only care about me. With that, she stumbled to her feet, grabbed the keys, and headed toward the door. I tilted my head slightly and followed behind her. Ghosts aren't like Western monsters. They don't kill outright with brute force. We exploit people's deepest secrets and weaknesses, stoking their fears. When she is completely overwhelmed by fear, that's when she's at her most delicious. The key turned once in the lock. The door didn't open, as if something was blocking it from inside. Jenny, are you in there? How did you get in? Sarah demanded. Her voice was calm, but I could see beads of cold sweat forming on her forehead. Get out of my way. She masked her unease with anger, pushing against the door with her full weight. Just as she exerted all her strength, I placed my hand on the door. The door slammed open. Sarah lunged forward and fell to the ground. Just as she was about to curse, her expression suddenly froze. She stared wide-eyed at the doorway. The safety doll pressed its head against the door crack, its mouth corners seemingly forced upward as it smiled at her. Sarah's bag slipped from her right shoulder and tumbled a few times on the ground. The phone fell to the floor. The screen lit up. It was a call from the hospital. Sarah stared fixedly at the doll, ignoring her phone. I answered the call for her. The doctor's voice came through. MS, Sarah. When the nurse went on duty tonight, she found that MS Jenny had already committed suicide. Apparently, the manner of my death was so bizarre that even the unscrupulous hospital doctor's voice carried a slight tremor. Suicide, Sarah murmured. Suicide is good. From now on, the James family will have only one daughter, me. She swallowed hard and kicked over the doll by the door. It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. The sticky blood from the doll smeared on her forehead slowly trickled down her face. Sarah stood up and kicked off her high heels. She walked barefoot toward the bathroom. I twisted my neck. Seems this fake heiress doesn't watch horror movies. Sarah pressed the bathroom light switch. The light didn't turn on. After hesitating for a few seconds, she twisted the faucet open. After washing her face with water, she looked up at the mirror. Moonlight streamed through the window. It illuminated a dense series of bloody words scrawled across the mirror. She let out an instinctive scream. Those words, she remembered them. It's Jenny's love letter. In high school, Jenny was called back home. Her adoptive mother arranged for Jenny to attend her school and took care of her. Everyone asked, "Who is this girl?" She thought, why come back to steal her position? So, she had a boy approach Jenny. Jenny was awkward, timid, unfit for the spotlight, and overwhelmed by everything, gradually let down her guard. The love letter to the boy was posted by her on the bulletin board. The boy was her boyfriend. She just deliberately hid it from Jenny, so, she became the adopted daughter who stole her boyfriend. Jenny turned into the scheming woman who jealously stole her sister's boyfriend. It's all an illusion, just an illusion, Sarah shouted. Scrub these bloodstains hard, as if wiping away the bloodstains could conceal these secrets. I tilted my head slightly, since blood kept flowing from the wound on my neck. I gave it a simple stitch for convenience, a bit crooked, but it's okay. I leaned close to Sarah's face, and looked in the mirror with her. Sarah screamed, escaped from the bathroom. She ran to the bedroom and locked the door. I slowly floated to the door and began knocking. 1, 2, 3, my knocking echoed through the silent night. Sarah's trembling voice came from behind the door. Don't come looking for me. It wasn't me who did it. Go find them. None of them like you. Don't come looking for me. In moments of fear, people always tend to shift blame. We ghosts generally refer to this behavior as stubbornly refusing to admit defeat even when death is at the door. My knocking gradually grew weaker. The sounds in the bedroom gradually subsided. Are they gone? Sarah's voice was filled with delight. No, my voice was hoarse from my severed vocal cords, but I found it quite pleasant to hear. Revenge never needs to be beautiful or elegant. I walked through the wall. Just kidding. Sarah stepped back, one step at a time. I was wrong. I was wrong. It was my fault back then. I deliberately framed you. I didn't want you to come back. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Please, I beg you. My body didn't hesitate for a moment. When gripped by fear, people still beg for mercy, as if believing that in this world, admitting fault alone can earn forgiveness. The system's voice echoed in my mind. Fake heiress Sarah's regret value, 80%. See, she regrets it. But I know it's not out of conscience. It's out of fear. I spread my arms and lunged at Sarah. Ah! Sarah let out a distorted scream and ran backward. Crack! The glass shattered. This house was on the 3rd floor. I glanced out the window, Sarah's fingers twitching. In the living room, Sarah's phone rang. Caller, Harry. He was Sarah and the original owner's brother. I remember. He also had a secret. Hello, the number you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Harry hung up the phone. Half an hour ago, he had sent Sarah to the car, telling her to go home and make a call to confirm she was safe. But now this was the 5th call he had made. Sarah still hadn't answered. Had something happened? He pushed aside his female companion and got up to leave. The street outside the bar was desolate and bleak. He had been drinking and couldn't drive, so he walked across the street, ready to hail a ride with his phone. Strange, why is there no signal? Harry clicked his tongue in annoyance and raised his phone to try again. Still no signal. Guess I'll have to go back to the bar and try there. He looked up across the street. How could that be? Across the street wasn't a bar, but an amusement park that had been demolished 5 years ago. The entire amusement park was silent and decaying. A ghastly white lantern hung at the entrance. There were only 2 visitors. A 10-year-old boy, holding the hand of a 5-year-old girl. They were dressed in the popular children's clothing of that era. Standing at the door, they didn't turn their heads, but Harry knew who they were. Him and his sister, Jenny. When this amusement park was first built, many children clamored to come. Harry had never been like that. Amusement parks are full of kids. Even the air feels dirty. Mother always said so. Father suggested going to the library instead, that summer 15 years ago. The 10-year-old boy sat in the library reading as usual. His 5 years younger sister was looking at picture books beside him. He looked and looked, growing increasingly agitated. The laughter and joy from the amusement park seemed to reach his ears. Finally, he closed the book and asked his sister, "How about I take you to a fun place?" Outside the library's main entrance, the family driver was waiting in the car. He thought for a moment, then climbed out through the first-floor window with his sister. They took 3 more bus stops before reaching the amusement park. The amusement park was packed with people. He stared intently at the rides, unable to look away. My sister lowered her head and quietly asked if we could go home. He refused. He told his sister to sit on the chair and wait for him. Then he got on the roller coaster himself. The roller coaster shot toward the clouds like an arrow from a bow. Then it plunged toward the ground. By the time he got off, he was completely dizzy. He glanced toward the bench, wanting to call his sister to the next ride. He froze. There was no one on the chair. Yes, I was sitting right here reading a book, but when I looked up, she was gone. He sobbed as he spoke to the officer beside him. In the library, the officer comforted him while explaining the situation to his frantic parents, who were pacing anxiously nearby. Based on the child's account, we can infer that little Jenny has been missing for no more than half an hour. Rest assured, parents, the perpetrator likely hasn't gone far from the library by now. We will immediately dispatch personnel to search the surrounding areas for suspicious individuals and inquire about potential witnesses. That's what the officer said at the time. No, not half an hour. It's been almost 3 hours. Not the library. It's the amusement park, he thought to himself. He saw his mother crying and begging the police to hurry up and find him. His father, frowning, called his subordinates. He opened his mouth but still didn't speak. Fortunately, no one realized it was his fault. No one noticed he had taken his little sister to the amusement park. They only thought the little sister had run off carelessly. The boy held his little sister's hand and walked into the amusement park, disappeared from sight. I sat in front of the ticket booth at the entrance, coldly watching Harry standing frozen by the street. His eyes were filled with terror and rage. Humans are strange. Their secret was exposed, and their first reaction wasn't shame, but rather anger, surprise, and fear. It's unclear how much time had passed. He staggered to his feet. He arrived at the entrance. The railing at the entrance stopped him. My voice was hoarse and muffled. "You need to buy a ticket." The cut on my neck was deep, completely severing my windpipe. So now I speak with a slight lisp. Harry is much bolder than Sarah. Hearing this sound, he showed no reaction at all and walked straight up to me. I handed him a ticket. He glanced at it, then roared and tore the ticket to pieces. Gone was the refined demeanor he once had. I knew why he tore the ticket to pieces, because it was scrawled with words written in blood. After Jenny returned, he said some things to his parents. He feared the returned Jenny, feared that she would recall her childhood and tell their parents the truth. Because of this fear, he began to resent her. He started distorting and misinterpreting Jenny's every action in front of their parents, making them believe that Jenny had changed. Jenny became full of lies, greedy and scheming. He subtly made his parents believe all of this. Ticket fragments were scattered all over the ground. Harry angrily banged on the window in front of me. "Who are you?" I raised my head. The pale light shone down. In his pupils, 2 faces kept shifting. One moment it was the 5-year-old child who got lost. The next it was the ashen-faced 20-year-old Jenny. "It's an illusion, an illusion. I'm drunk, I'm just drunk." Harry's eyes were bloodshot as he frantically smashed the window, as if trying to see whether I was human or ghost. How foolish. I'm obviously a ghost. I tilted my head at him with a smile. A thread snapped on my neck. Half of the head was severed along with the neck. Harry turned ashen, collapsing to the ground in terror at the sight. I passed through the ticket hall's wall. Step by step, I approached him. Harry trembled all over, retreating step by step with his hands supporting him. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Humans are strange. I was wrong, doesn't signify genuine remorse. It merely means they're afraid." Shoo. I adjusted my head properly and extended a finger toward him. At the door, the little boy was leaving alone. He lowered his head and walked past me and Harry, as if he didn't see us. I followed behind the boy, reaching for the boy's neck. Blood flowed onto the back of the boy's collar. The boy remained oblivious, walking forward with his head down. "No." As my hand was about to touch the boy, Harry suddenly shouted loudly behind me, with strength from who knows where. He rushed forward, trying to push me away. "I was wrong doesn't mean he's willing to atone." I turned around and smiled at him. Bang! At the entrance of the bar, A speeding sports car screeched to a sudden stop. A young man reeking of alcohol stuck his head out. On the street, the fire hydrant was stained with crimson blood. Beside it, Harry lay on his back, motionless. A large pool of blood seeped from the back of his head. In a VIP ward of a certain hospital, I was idly spinning in circles by the central air conditioning. Beside me stood a middle-aged man who looked extremely composed. It was the original host's father, David. He had rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night, and I saw with my own eyes how his hair turned gray overnight. The heir had his limbs amputated, and the publicly acknowledged heiress was paralyzed. One could imagine how frantic and helpless he must be feeling right now. After a while, a well-maintained noblewoman rushed into the ward. It was Mrs. James, the original host's mother. She had been on vacation abroad and flew back on the first available flight after receiving the tragic news. As soon as she entered the hospital room, she burst into tears over Sarah and Harry lying unconscious on the bed. Her wailing could be considered top-tier even among professional mourners. I couldn't help but agree. After crying for a while, Sarah's body suddenly twitched. Then her eyes slowly opened. Mrs. James hurried to embrace her. "Sarah, you're awake." But Sarah let out a scream and pushed her away, gripping the sheets beneath her tightly, her pupils suddenly dilating. Let me go, don't come after me." I froze. I didn't appear, so theoretically Sarah shouldn't be able to see me. It seems she was too frightened, her mind nearly scared out of her wits. Mrs. James was startled by Sarah's behavior and, after a moment of realization, cried out, "Sarah, I'm your mother, don't scare me." "Sarah," David frowned and said seriously, "Sarah, what exactly happened last night?" He clearly didn't believe that Sarah and Harry's simultaneous accidents overnight were coincidental, suspecting it was the work of an enemy. Sarah gasped rapidly, her body trembling uncontrollably. "It's Jenny, she turned into a vengeful ghost and came for me." At the mention of that name, both David and Mrs. James froze in shock. After a long pause, Mrs. James finally asked, Jenny, what happened to her?" Of course, she had no idea that the original Jenny was already dead, because that unscrupulous hospital didn't dare to report the case. They kept everything hidden until they could contact Sarah. I sneered, watching this whole farce unfold. Sarah said, "Jenny committed suicide. She had cancer, and she killed herself yesterday. She came to see me yesterday." Mrs. James widened her eyes, her lips trembling slightly, upon hearing the news. David also froze completely, although they despised Jenny, no matter what. Jenny was still their biological daughter. According to the original trajectory of this story, Jenny overdosed on pills and committed suicide. When her parents learned the truth, they were utterly devastated. But now I've twisted the course of the story, yet they still showed some reaction upon hearing the news of her death. Yet this is far from enough. I can't see their fear. Unlike Sarah and Harry, they have no secrets. They stubbornly believe that Jenny is vulgar and vain. So they are disappointed in her and turn a blind eye to her. They think they're not wrong, believing what they see is the truth. This makes me feel tricky. The fear without secrets is not delicious, but we must look for opportunities. Sarah cried and hugged Mrs. James. "Mom, my sister said I stole her parents, that I stole her boyfriend. She said even if she died, she wouldn't let me off easy. Mom, I'm so scared. Find a master to get rid of her, even after what happened last night." She still lied through her teeth to her adoptive parents. These words pulled Mrs. James back from the news of Jenny's death, and the rising melancholy was quickly replaced by disgust. "Is it Jenny? Did she harm you and Harry? Even in death, she can't rest peacefully. So vicious," as she had done countless times before. She swiftly passed judgment. Mr. James also said with disgust, "I'll contact a master later. This kind of scourge really doesn't deserve to be my daughter, David." I straightened my head. The opportunity has come. A competent ghost wouldn't let people find a proper spiritual master. Moreover, how could the James family, being mere merchants, possibly know any truly capable experts? They're just some fame-seeking charlatans with minor tricks but no real power. But I'm different. I'm a skilled and experienced vengeful spirit. So when I possessed this so-called master who was adorned in gold and silver and lived in a villa, I felt no ripple of emotion in my heart. Before me, Mr. and Mrs. James recounted the whole story and then respectfully handed me a check. I paced back and forth, pretending to ponder deeply for a while before saying, "From what I see, this ghost is extremely fierce, but there's no need for panic. My dear couple, with over 40 years in this profession, I've dealt with situations like this before. After a lot of persuasion, I finally told them my purpose. I asked them to take Sarah and Harry to the hospital where I committed suicide tonight to exorcise and pacify the spirits. Mr. and Mrs. James, seeing how confident I sounded, couldn't help but feel somewhat relieved. Night, in the hospital ward, the bloodstains had been wiped clean by the cleaning staff, but the entire room still looked eerie and oppressive. Sarah in her wheelchair and Harry cautiously surveyed their surroundings, dressed in traditional Chinese attire. I muttered incantations under my breath while shaking a black bell. I also paced around, carefully arranging the compass formation. If they knew what they were doing, they'd realize this incantation of mine is for summoning spirits, and the bell is meant to disturb people's minds. Once the formation is complete, this land will become a treasure trove for gathering ghosts and summoning souls. As the final step of the formation was set, I placed a black idol in the center and inserted 3 incense sticks upside down into the censer in front. Instantly, a chilling wind howled, and the compass spun wildly. I shouted, "She's here." Then I rapidly recited the incantation under my breath. The eerie wind paused briefly before surging back with renewed force, scattering the talismans away. Wiping cold sweat from my brow, I said with grave expression, "This female ghost is too fierce. We cannot capture her directly." Sarah was already terrified out of her wits, and upon hearing this news, her face was filled with despair. "Master, what should we do?" I said leisurely. "Only by delivering it can you ensure your safety." Harry, standing nearby, also hurriedly asked, "How do we deliver it?" I patiently guided them. A vengeful ghost seeking lives must have unresolved karma from its past life. In this formation, I will chant the incantation later, and you must burn paper money for the deceased. The chanting must not stop, and the paper money must not cease. At the same time, you must recount all the karmic ties with the vengeful spirit one by one. Only then can the vengeful spirit be liberated. The moment the James siblings heard these words, hesitation instantly appeared on their faces. They looked at the anxious Mr. and Mrs. James beside them and remained silent. I sneered inwardly, summoning another gust of eerie wind. This time, the lights went out. I shouted sharply, "I saw her. Is she wearing a red dress, with her head tilted awkwardly and a bunch of stitches on her neck? The vengeful spirit has appeared, which means it's about to do evil again. This formation won't hold much longer." Sarah immediately screamed and covered her head, while Harry overturned his wheelchair and collapsed on the ground. Mr. and Mrs. James, seeing the situation, anxiously said, "Sarah, Harry, don't be afraid. Just do as the master instructed. Just state the facts, and it'll be fine." They took it for granted that Jenny's lingering spirit was due to her unrelenting malice, consumed by jealousy toward the siblings, so they couldn't understand why these causes and effects weren't being revealed. The James siblings were terrified, yet they still refused to agree to this demand, helpless. I let the blood seep from the soles of my feet. It slowly flowed toward the siblings of the James family. Sarah was the first to sense it, immediately letting out a scream. A familiar feeling surged through her heart once more, shattering her psychological defenses. I'll talk. She wheeled herself to the brazier, her face clearly distorted with fear in the flickering flames, her hands trembling. She began tossing spirit money into the fire. Seeing Sarah do this, Harry could no longer hold back either, crawling to the brazier and starting to throw in spirit money. Mr. and Mrs. James looked at the 2 frightened children with concern and heartache. I shook the bell, murmuring words under my breath. "It was because I wanted to go to the amusement park back then that you got lost. I was afraid Mom and Dad would scold me, so I lied and said you got lost at the library. I didn't mean to. I was young and didn't know it would turn out like this. I didn't know. I was afraid you'd come back and take my place, so I accused you of stealing to keep you from seeing Mom and Dad. I was blinded by greed and acted foolishly. I never truly meant to harm you. Please forgive me." Mr. and Mrs. James's expressions gradually shifted, growing increasingly complicated and uneasy. Finally, Mrs. James tore the talisman to pieces in anger, crying as she demanded the truth from Harry, who was crawling on the ground. Mr. James, losing control, yanked Sarah up and shouted, "Is what you said true? What else are the 2 of you hiding from us?" The James siblings dared not say more, hurriedly denying their earlier confessions through tears. I said leisurely, "Time is running out." I pointed my hand toward the window. The James siblings followed the direction and screamed again. Hanging from the window was a blood-stained Lucky doll, with amusement park tickets scattered beneath it. Deeper fear overwhelmed them, making them no longer consider the consequences of exposing these truths to the world. They began to tremble with even greater piety and fear, ignoring the curses and fury of Mr. and Mrs. James. As they continued to recount their deeds over the years, they slandered Jenny, branding her with the stigma of being a homewrecker, making everyone believe she was jealous, malicious, and a pathological liar. They hired thugs to beat her, tore open her sanitary pads and threw them around the classroom, calling her a slut, make her hate school, make her drop out of college, make her get kicked out of the house, make her suffer from cancer with no cure. They trembled and wept, confessing their crimes, not out of sudden enlightenment or morality, but out of fear. Mrs. James screamed, clawing at Harry until blood was drawn, cursing him through her tears. Mr. James roared, slapping Sarah several times across the face, his eyes filled with disgust, disdain, and fury. Seeing the sibling still burning paper money, he directly kicked over the entire brazier. The fire went out. I clicked my tongue and resumed that hoarse, muffled voice. The fire's out. The salvation ritual has failed. She's here, under the moonlight. My shadow cast on the wall began to change rapidly, from a pot-bellied middle-aged man to a long-haired, skirt-wearing female ghost. Sarah screamed, desperately breaking free from Mr. James's grip and maneuvering her wheelchair to flee toward the door. Before she could reach the door, the wheelchair slipped and tipped over. She crashed to the ground and lost consciousness. Harry's body went limp, and a foul-smelling liquid seeped out from beneath him. His eyes rolled back, and he too passed out. The system's voice echoed in my mind. Sarah, Harry's regret value, 100%. Mrs. James' regret value, 80%. Mr. James' regret value, 60%. I emerged from the so-called master's body, coldly staring at the shocked and remorseful Mr. and Mrs. James before me. Mrs. James looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yee, is that you? I'm sorry you suffered. It's my fault. I was wrong. I failed you as a mother. Mr. James's hair had turned even whiter. He lowered his head and crushed the cigarette beneath his foot. I'm sorry. I was deceived by those two bastards and misunderstood you. Son, I wronged you. At last, they were no longer stubborn and biased. The mountain called prejudice was finally leveled to the ground at this moment. They have already made an unprecedented apology. They are also victims, and they have finally recognized some of their failures as parents. If this were a primetime soap opera or some feel-good novel, then as a vengeful ghost, I should now embrace them and slowly fade away. But why should I? Why do they so comfortably believe their only mistake was being deceived? Why do they think I would forgive them just because they apologize? I am a vengeful spirit. I treat everyone equally. I only need fear. I let out a derisive laugh, nearly laughing my head off. In the second year after I was trafficked, you adopted Sarah. Did you ever consider that if I were found, this act might make me feel like I didn't belong? You didn't think it through. You were just eager to soothe your own pain, eager to find a replacement. On the very first day I was found, you protected Sarah, making me accept her place in this family, because subconsciously, you had already treated Sarah as your own daughter, and you couldn't help but despise me, who you thought was corrupted by the harsh environment. So even in front of me, who had been trafficked for 7 years, you still considered Sarah the vulnerable one. You're blaming Sarah and Harry for deceiving you now, but what about yourselves? The first time you heard their slander against me, you believed it all without verification, as if graciously telling me to admit my mistakes and reform. They know their own wickedness, while you don't even realize the stench of your souls beneath your hypocritical facades. I said sharply. The original host's memories echoed in my mind, and I felt her pain as my own. I don't believe you when you say you regret it. If you're wrong, then pay with your life. My figure grew enormous. I finally found their points of fear and kept amplifying them. Fear is the greatest guilt. A chilling wind swept through. The entire pane of glass was lifted and hurled toward them. Mr. and Mrs. James regret value, 100%. Host mission completed. Psychiatric hospital. Sarah sat in a wheelchair, giggling foolishly, spilling the porridge bowl all over herself. Harry lay on the ground, a foul stench lingering around him. Mr. and Mrs. James huddled in the corner, their expressions like those of 3-year-old children. I floated by the windowsill, savoring the scene. The system remained silent for a long time before saying, for the past 3 years, these people's regret levels have remained at 100%. This is a miracle. In the past, after the female lead died, their regret would gradually decrease. I let out a mocking laugh. No one lives their entire life burdened by guilt. But people do live their entire lives consumed by fear, those so-called wishes, like, may you rule over vast lands, yet drown in boundless loneliness, or the expectation of using one's own death to retaliate against those who hurt them. Such notions are childish and laughable, like a child, refusing food in hopes of making parents yield. But you are not a child, and they are unworthy of being parents. This is a form of discipline imposed on the vulnerable, so when someone hurts you, aim your fists. Your knives, your cannons at their hearts. Instead of turning inward, your mission is successfully completed. Would you like any rewards? I furrowed my brows, looked at the bright sunshine outside and the children running on the grass, and smiled. Give me a healthy body. I want to experience the taste of being alive. If it weren't for the fact that the original owner's body was terminally ill with cancer and wouldn't last more than 2 weeks, I would never have chosen suicide. Living is the best choice. Go see the misty rain over Peace City, the rivers of time flowing by. Foolish girl, your life is never worth using for revenge against others. You must live well and let your life bloom. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I was reborn. Reborn before I was even born. This time, I decided to choose different parents. That way, Mom wouldn't lose her figure because of giving birth to me, and Dad wouldn't cheat on her just because she became less attractive. In my past life, Uncle George and Aunt Ella next door always wanted a child but couldn't have one. Now it's settled. When I go to his house, everyone is happy. Yet, why is it that without me, my former parents' lives have only gotten worse? Didn't Mom say I was a jinx in my previous life? I only lived until 17 before jumping from a high rise, ending my young life. Ever since I can remember, my mother has hated me, always hitting or scolding me. She always said that the reason she became like this was because of me. She claimed that because she got pregnant with me, she gained weight and became ugly, couldn't fit into her pretty clothes anymore, which made my father stop coming home and find another woman outside. She said that because she gave birth to me, she was afraid I would be bullied by a stepmother, so she didn't dare to get a divorce. She said she had made such enormous sacrifices for me. She was originally an employee at Dad's company and stopped working after they started dating. After marriage, she became a full-time homemaker, devoting herself entirely to the family. To be precise, she devoted herself to Dad, because I was always taken care of by the nanny. But when I was 4 years old, my father came home drunk one day and mistook the nanny, whose grandson was already 2 years old, for his mistress outside. Speaking flirtatiously, a few days later, that nanny was fired. My few good days also came to an end. From then on, I lived in dire straits. Sometimes I went hungry, sometimes I ate my fill, and I never had breakfast because Mom needed her beauty sleep and couldn't get up. She also liked to pinch me. My skin took after her youthful complexion, fair and tender, and she always said I stole her good skin from her. She claimed that after giving birth to me, spots appeared on her face, and even worse, ugly stretch marks formed on her belly. When she was in a bad mood, she couldn't stand the sight of my youthful face. They would scold and pinch me, not on the face, but in hidden places, my arms or the tops of my thighs. It hurt so much, and the bruises would linger for a long time, dark and purple, terrifying to look at. Today, Dad called to say he'd be away on a business trip for a few days. Mom swept all the dinner she had made onto the floor, screaming, "Business trip, my foot. Who knows which vixen he's running off with this time?" Her expression was ferocious, her voice shrill, frightening me badly as I stood by the table waiting for dinner. Hot soup splashed onto my face, making me step back and wipe it off with my hand. It hurt so much that tears silently welled up in my eyes. "What are you crying for? Quiet. It's all because of you, you jinx." Mom strode over, yanked my hand away, swung her arm forcefully, and a heavy slap landed on my face, sending me flying backward until the back of my head hit the ground hard. My face burned with pain, whether from the heat or the blow, I couldn't tell, and tears I could no longer hold back gushed from my eyes. This was the first time she had ever hit me, and she struck the most visible spot. She used to care about appearances. always playing the role of a loving mother in front of others, even at her angriest. She had only ever pinched me in hidden places. You only know how to cry, because of you. I'm about to lose my husband, and this family is falling apart. I'm the one who should be crying. With that, she walked back to her room and slammed the door shut with force. I lay on the floor, covering my face as tears silently streamed down. It took me a long while before I could finally get up and shuffle over to the scattered food on the ground. It was already past 9 p.m., and I was starving. But Mom always insisted on waiting for Dad to come home before we could eat. No matter how late it got, if I don't find food myself today, I'll have to go hungry. I picked up a relatively clean piece of meat with my fingers and stuffed it into my mouth. The taste was a bit strange, dirty. I quickly spat it out. The brownish meat was stained with bright red. My mouth was bleeding, I realized belatedly. My entire face was numb, and I couldn't feel any pain at all, so I didn't even know the skin was broken. Rushed to the sink, wanting to use a cup to rinse the taste of blood from my mouth, only to realize I wasn't tall enough to reach it. Struggled to drag a stool over, climbed onto it, and finally managed to reach. Looking in the mirror, I noticed the side of my face that had been hit was badly swollen, a large red patch with finger marks, the most noticeable being that long scratch. Must have been scratched by Mom's freshly done long nails. After cleaning my mouth, I used the unbroken bowl to pick up quite a few edible dishes, ate until I was full, and even packed some in a bag to hide as tomorrow's breakfast. There's plenty of food in the fridge, but I can't take any. If Mom finds out, I'll get scolded. All you do is eat and cry. Completely useless, a troublemaker. This is what she scolds me with most often. After cleaning up the completely inedible meal and broken dishes, the busy work kept me up until late at night. I turned off all the lights in the house, returned to my room, and quickly fell asleep, because when I'm asleep, it doesn't hurt anymore. The next day, I woke up early to eat the breakfast I had hidden the night before, then started reading the picture book given by one of Dad's employees. The woman was a very pretty auntie, but Mom didn't like her. Out of the whole set of picture books, only this one remained. The others had all been thrown away by Mom. I was completely absorbed in reading when the door suddenly swung open. You don't need to go to kindergarten these next few days. I've asked the teacher for some time off. Mom pushed the door open and entered. She never had the habit of knocking when it came to me. I wanted to hide my only picture book, but how could my little trick escape Mom's notice? She snatched it away, and in a few swift motions, the book was torn into tiny pieces scattered on the floor. Fine, still hiding this stuff, huh? Do you want to call that vixen your mother instead, you ungrateful little traitor? As she spoke, she grabbed me by the collar and pinched my thigh hard. I didn't dare move, afraid that resisting would only fuel her rage even more. The days passed like this, with me in deep distress. When I entered high school, my mother's attitude toward me suddenly improved. She no longer scolded or hit me at will. At home, she would even dress me up, apply makeup for me, and take out her old beautiful dresses for me to wear, making me look pretty. I was happy for a long time, thinking it was because of my good academic performance and getting into a key high school. But strangely, she would only dress me up when Dad came home. Perhaps she was starting to make an effort to manage the family and marriage, wanting to show her best side to Dad. With the positive changes at home, Dad started coming back more frequently. I tried my best to cooperate with Mom, attempting to make the home feel warm, until one day, Mom pushed me into Dad's room when he was drunk and told me to take care of him. At that moment, I finally understood. Mom was trying to use me to keep Dad, and in this way, Dad mistook me for Mom. I wanted to escape, but the door had been locked from the outside by Mom. In the end, I knocked Dad unconscious with a lamp. I rushed into the bathroom, locked the door, and couldn't stop trembling. That day, my world collapsed. The next day, Mom opened the door and came in. Seeing Dad lying unconscious on the floor, she immediately started screaming and then began kicking the bathroom door furiously. You jinx, I told you to take care of Dad, and this is how you do it, letting him sleep on the floor. Get out here, you ungrateful wretch. Her shrieks were loud enough to lift the roof. I sat on the toilet all night without closing my eyes, trying to find excuses for Mom's behavior, anything that could convince me she was my biological mother. Why does she hate me so much, even towards a stranger? She wouldn't harbor such intense hatred. Pulling open the bathroom door, I stared at her with bloodshot eyes, perhaps because my gaze was too unsettling. Her stream of curses abruptly stopped, ignoring her, I turned my attention back to Dad, who was still lying on the floor. She had been too busy yelling at me to help him up first. I thought she loved this man so much, but it turns out to be just like this. I walked past her, and she wanted to speak, but perhaps my expression was too cold. She couldn't manage it. I stepped over Dad, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw his tightly shut eyeballs twitch, so he was awake after all. I couldn't help but smirk. With such a commotion, unless he was dead, how could he not wake up? Only he himself knows whether he was truly drunk last night. After going through this incident, my mental state has deteriorated significantly. Too many things are hard to understand. I can't sleep night after night. My mood remains low, and I don't feel like doing anything. After some time, my grades dropped rapidly. The teacher talked to me, noticed something was wrong, and called my parents. After Mom came back, she finally found an excuse to vent. Ever since Dad got drunk that day, perhaps because he said something to her, she had been treating me like air, as if I didn't exist, ignoring me completely. This time, she finally found an outlet for her frustration. Quiet, what's wrong with you? Since you were little, this is the only achievement you could be proud of. What are you trying to do now? Do you want to become utterly useless? No one knows where she found that test paper, but she slapped it down right in front of me. Just after coming home, Dad heard this and walked over, picked up the test paper to look at it, then chimed in from the side. He said he could ignore other things, but my grades had to be maintained for him. Ridiculous. He never cared about me growing up, except when I got into a top high school, when he threw a few banquets to brag about it to his business friends. Listening to my mother's curses and my father's lectures, I felt no emotional disturbance. I just slowly walked to the balcony and jumped down from it. The curses and lectures behind me suddenly stopped, and the world fell silent. In a daze, I felt a force pulling at me. What's going on? Wasn't I smashed into pieces, scattered everywhere, dead beyond dead? I forced my eyes open and found myself floating above the familiar neighborhood, being dragged back by that force toward the home I had just escaped. Instinctively, I struggled. I absolutely refused to go back. No matter where else I might end up, just not there. Spotting the door next door, I mustered all my strength and rushed toward it. Uncle George and Aunt Ella were among the few sources of warmth in my brief life. Perhaps because my resistance was too strong, I managed to rush into the next room as I wished, where I saw Uncle George and Aunt Ella fast asleep. Then, I rushed into Aunt Ella's belly. 10 months later, I was born again. But this time, I got a new mom and became Aunt Ella's child. In my previous life, Aunt Ella never had a child of her own. She went through all kinds of medical tests, but nothing was found to be wrong, and even IVF didn't succeed. In my eyes, if Uncle George and Aunt Ella had a child, they would be the most perfect parents. Whenever she ran into me, Aunt Ella always managed to pull all sorts of candies and cookies out of her pocket. When Mom was too busy catching Dad cheating to come home, she would always take me to her place for meals. Uncle George was a great cook, and the food was absolutely delicious. He wouldn't stay out all the time like Dad did, nor would he drink constantly and come home vomiting endlessly like Dad. Cleaning up is really annoying. In his free time, Uncle George would also teach me some principles of conduct and how to interact with people. During middle school, for some unknown reason, a girl led others in isolating me. At that time, due to my mother's constant scolding and beating, I was extremely insecure and didn't dare to fight back. It was Uncle George who gave me the idea to divide and conquer, and in the end, those girls even wanted to be friends with me, saying I was smart. But I didn't agree. Uncle George told me to focus my energy on the most important things. And for me at that time, the most important thing was studying. But as I looked at the man before me, who kept hugging and kissing me non-stop, the idealized image I had of him in my mind completely shattered. All that grandeur of his back, that maturity and steadiness, it was all just my own imagination. This stubble really hurts. I closed my eyes in pain. All right, stop kissing me. Elizabeth is already asleep. Aunt Ella was the considerate one who got me out of that awkward situation. They gave me the name Elizabeth, and I really liked this new name. In my past life, I was called Quiet because my mom said I cried too much, when I was hungry, when I wet myself, or for no reason at all. It was so annoying that she named me Quiet, hoping I'd be quieter. I was placed in my new mother's arms, listening to their warm, casual chatter as I slowly drifted off to sleep. In a daze, I heard my new dad say he ran into my former mom at the hospital. Apparently she was there for a checkup because she hadn't been able to conceive after remarrying. I was confused. This didn't make sense. Shouldn't she be relieved about not getting pregnant? That way she wouldn't have to worry about her figure being ruined or becoming unattractive from childbirth. Isn't that ideal? Why would she want to have a baby now? Forget it. I don't want to think anymore. I'm so sleepy. Children need more sleep. The day was bright and sunny. My mom, who had been staying at home for several months, decided to take me downstairs to get some sun, opening the door. I ran into my former mother who had just stepped out of the elevator, her face haggard with dark circles under her eyes. I'm familiar with this state. Every time she used to go out to stalk my former father, she'd return looking exactly like this. But these were things that happened back when I was in kindergarten. At the beginning, that scumbag ex-father shouldn't have been so brazen yet. Wait, that doesn't add up. The current abusive mother hasn't had any children yet. Nor has she become unattractive. So that scumbag ex-father shouldn't have cheated. When we ran into the neighbor, Mom greeted her warmly. The neighbor's mother was quite cold, and her expression darkened even more when she saw me. Your child is quite cute, she said, her praise sounding half-hearted. In Mom's eyes, I was naturally the cutest in the world. Faced with such an insincere remark from the neighbor, Mom didn't want to engage further. After politely thanking her, she prepared to head downstairs. Unexpectedly, the mother who hit her child spoke up again. You haven't been married for long, right? The baby is already several months old. Do you have some secret recipe for having children? My mom, who had been very composed, turned around in shock, her face clearly saying, what are you talking about? I was stunned too. This was way too personal for such a casual acquaintance. Want a fertility secret? You should ask me. I'm the mastermind behind all this. I don't understand these things. Mom finally retreated under the doubtful gaze of the other mother who had just hit someone. How come I never noticed before how strange our next-door neighbor is? I should keep my distance from her from now on. In the elevator, Mom held me and muttered to herself. It was lively downstairs, with many moms or grandparents bringing their kids out to play. Several familiar neighbors had gathered together. Before I could get close, I overheard them gossiping about my deadbeat dad and abusive mom. Let me tell you, that Mr. Zoe doesn't seem to be doing well. I overheard him and his wife Tina arguing about having kids in the underground parking lot. Tina wanted him to go to the hospital for a checkup, but he absolutely refused and even cursed at her. It was really nasty. One of the female neighbors glanced around at the group, her expression clearly saying, you all better be shocked by this. Another neighbor looked particularly stunned and hesitantly spoke up. Zoe can't perform, no way. Just the other day, when our family went out to eat, we saw him shopping with a woman, and what's more, that woman was heavily pregnant. As soon as these words were spoken, the others didn't know which part to be surprised about first. Exchanging bewildered glances, Mom stood there holding me, momentarily unsure whether to step forward or quietly retreat, pretending she hadn't heard. Jane, long time no see, finally decided to come out. A sharp-eyed aunt noticed Mom and warmly approached her. Mom is called Jane, and she's kind-hearted. This interruption swept aside the previous topic, and everyone started teasing me instead. I already knew from my past life that my scumbag dad would cheat, but I never expected him to have a secret love child in this lifetime. Maybe he had one in the past life too, but no one ever found out. The mother who hits me is so eager to have a child, which is something I can't understand. She clearly despises me and hates all the after-effects that come with childbirth. Can't understand. I was so surprised that my eyes widened, making me look adorably dumbfounded, which caused all the aunties, young and old, to exclaim how cute I was. The atmosphere was great, and the neighborhood relationships were harmonious, something I had never experienced in my previous life. In her previous life, my mother was aloof and proud, completely devoted to my scumbag father, and never had much interaction with the neighbors. I, on the other hand, was an introverted and insecure child, barely noticeable in the neighborhood, only able to mumble a timid greeting with my head down when meeting others. With my long bangs hanging over my face, most people probably didn't even know what I looked like. Time flew by, and soon I reached the age to start kindergarten. That day, the kindergarten gate was bustling with noise as the teacher handed me over to my mom, who had been waiting for a long time. Both Mom and I were wearing light green dresses, our matching outfits for the day. We had quite a few of these coordinated clothes. Elizabeth's mom looks especially beautiful today, the teacher praised. My mom is beautiful every day. I proudly chimed in, gazing at my youthful, radiant, and shapely mother. She added later, I'm as pretty as Mom too. This made both the teacher and Mom laugh. After Mom got pregnant and gave birth to me, she also gained quite a bit of weight, but she later stuck to exercising, along with Dad's daily love-filled low-calorie meals, so she slimmed down quickly and could wear her beautiful clothes from before again, after saying goodbye to the teacher. Mom held my hand as we walked home. On the way, we passed by a small shop and bought 2 ice cream cones. We made a pact not to tell Dad and ate them as we walked home. Days like these were truly wonderful. However, as soon as we stepped out of the elevator, we saw the neighbor's door wide open, with the sound of a heated argument coming from inside. Divorce, Zoe, let me tell you, I will never agree to a divorce. Don't even think about making way for that shameless woman and her bastard child outside. Even if I die, I'll die in this house. The abusive mother screamed hysterically. Fine, go die right now, useless like a toilet that won't flush, a woman who can't even bear children. What did I marry you for? Die quickly, and I'll bring Ollie and the others over immediately. The scumbag father's words dripped with malice, showing not an ounce of pity for his lawful wife. Ha ha ha, Zoe. I can't have children. All these years I've been getting checkups. There's nothing wrong with me. Who knows if that bastard outside is even yours? Might as well be old Wang's. Ha ha ha. The abusive mother's laughter was eerie, giving off a sense of mental instability. Tina, you're being unreasonable, blaming others for your own inability to conceive. The scumbag father stormed out with a dark expression, slamming the door behind him, only to look up and see my mother covering my ears. Ready to head home, overhearing someone else's family matters by accident, my mother felt awkward and momentarily unsure of how to react. The scumbag dad acted as if he didn't see anything and just walked away. The abusive mom roared inside the house and started smashing things, thinking I'll die to make way for that bitch. Zoe, you wish. I'll smash everything. Let's see how you live. Mom closed the door, shutting out the curses. It must be said the neighborhood did a pretty good job with soundproofing. Back already. Go wash your hands and eat. Dad placed a pot of soup on the dining table, accompanied by the standard 3 dishes and 1 soup. My favorite cola chicken wings and Mom's beloved chopped chili fish head. Are the neighbors arguing again? Dad casually asked once everyone was seated. He had grown accustomed to the toxic relationship between the couple next door. They fought every time they met. Exactly. The things they say are so awful. I'm really worried they might influence our Elizabeth, Mom said, shaking her head with concern as she looked at me. Dad chuckled nonchalantly and placed a chicken wing in my bowl. Our Elizabeth isn't some delicate flower raised in a greenhouse. It's good for her to see all kinds of people, don't you think? Then he patted my head and asked, Elizabeth, what do you think of Uncle Joe and Aunt Tang next door? I chewed on a chicken wing thoughtfully before mumbling my answer. They're both selfish people, whether in past lives or this one. They've never changed, always seeing only themselves. Hearing my reply, Dad burst out laughing and shot Mom a triumphant look. See, my daughter's a smart one. That's right, it's all inherited from you. Mom laughed along. After being reborn, I did everything I could to change my parents. I thought without me, the troublemaker, they would live much better. But the reality was the opposite. Their lives became even worse. Now it has even reached the point of divorce. That scumbag father had an affair and fathered a love child, something that didn't happen in my past life. Maybe it did, but he never chose to bring the child home in my past life. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sneer mockingly. Perhaps it was because my academic performance back then was still decent enough to give him plenty of face in front of all those CEOs. After all, the CEOs he worked with at the time weren't exactly stellar when it came to raising their own children. I was able to attend high school only because they were generous, making significant contributions to the school's development, which prevented me from being left without an education. Because of my excellent academic performance, they were particularly envious of the scumbag dad and were willing to collaborate more with him, leading to the continuous growth of his company's performance. So, no matter how unreasonable the abusive mom was at the time, the scumbag dad endured it. It seemed she could keep acting out without getting divorced because of me. Without me in this life, they might really end up getting divorced. As I gnawed on a chicken wing, I suddenly understood some key points from my past life. Is that so? I shook my head. It must have been my imagination. What are you doing? Eat properly. Mom scolded me when she noticed my odd behavior. I quickly focused on eating. Not wanting to waste the delicious dishes Dad had prepared, as days passed, the arguments next door grew increasingly intense. The scumbag dad came home less and less, and the abusive mom seemed to have developed mental issues, appearing gloomy all the time. One day, Mom and I ran into the abusive mom in the elevator on our way back home. Mom greeted her, but she didn't respond. Instead, she stared at me with an unreadable expression. As we stepped out of the elevator, she slowly murmured, "If only you were my child." Mom laughed it off awkwardly, but her grip on my hand tightened noticeably as she shielded me behind her. She then hurried us home, locked the door, and warned me to stay away from that woman in the future. When I was about to enter elementary school, a lot of police suddenly arrived next door and took away the abusive mother. Later, news spread that the scumbag father's illegitimate child had been kidnapped and sold to human traffickers. Fortunately, it was discovered in time. The traffickers were caught by the police during the transaction, and besides the scumbag father's illegitimate child, several other abducted children were rescued. The police conducted a thorough investigation and caught the person who kidnapped the illegitimate child. That person was as timid as a mouse and confessed everything as soon as they were caught. A few sentences explained the whole story, claiming that all of this was funded by a sponsor who paid him to do it, that sponsor being the person who hit the mother. Even more outrageous was the police's discovery that her reason for doing this was simply because she didn't want to divorce her scumbag husband. She believed the scumbag husband was determined to divorce her because of the child, and that if the child were gone, none of this would have happened. So she wanted the child to disappear in order to save her marriage. After learning the whole story from others, Mom was stunned. She looked at Dad and asked in disbelief, "Doesn't she think the biggest problem in their marriage is her husband?" "Any normal person would think so." Dad nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Her husband cheated and kept a mistress, even fathered a love child. Instead of gathering evidence to sue for divorce, she got herself into trouble." What was she thinking? Mom was getting a bit frantic. "Zoe runs a company, so he must be pretty well off. If she gets divorced in this situation, she could get a decent share. Wouldn't it be better for her to spend that money on 10 or 8 young, handsome guys? Zoe is just an average-looking older man. Does she really love him that much? I don't buy it." As she finished shaking her head, Dad and I both stared at her. 10 or 8 young, handsome guys. Dad's tone was hard to read. Mom quickly shot me a pleading look for help. I adjusted my facial expression after receiving it, looking innocently at Dad and tilting my head to ask, "Was Mom wrong?" Dad noticed our little act but didn't call us out on it. "Mom is right. When you realize your partner isn't worth entrusting your life to, you should cut your losses in time and escape from this quagmire with minimal damage, because the future is long, and we still have many choices ahead." Dad affectionately ruffled my little head. "But your mom's approach is too extreme. Don't learn that from her, understand?" I nodded earnestly. "Don't worry, Dad. I won't spend money raising 8 or 10 young heartthrobs. That's too many and a waste of money. No one's money grows on trees. It should be spent wisely. I'll just keep one, the most obedient and best looking." I joked in my childish voice. Dad nodded approvingly, while Mom was utterly dumbfounded. "I suspect I've led my daughter astray." The abusive mother was ultimately sentenced to 7 years for inciting others to commit crimes. The scumbag father also got his wish and divorced her, quickly bringing the other woman and their child home. That woman was much more socially adept than the abusive mother. On her very first day, she came to my house with pastries and her child, observing all the proper courtesies. You can't hit someone who's smiling at you. So even knowing her past actions, Mom could only greet her with a smile. "I've seen this woman before. She's the one Dad brought home the most, the woman Mom hates the most, Alice. The few toys I had were brought by her, but in the end, those things became the trigger for Mom to take her anger out on me. This must be Elizabeth. Your brother is about your age. You should take him out to play more often." Ellie pushed a little boy about my height in front of me. The child looked decent, quite similar to Ellie, with a somewhat haughty expression. Clearly not very interested in playing with me. This suited me just fine. I settled him aside and started reading, paying him no further attention. Fortunately, they didn't stay long before leaving. I'm really not used to this kind of normal neighborly relationship. It's exhausting. After seeing them off, Mom rubbed her stiffened face from smiling and complained to me. However, this peaceful period didn't last long before trouble struck next door again. This time, it was the scumbag dad who got into trouble. His company's funding chain broke, and failing to secure any investment, he ultimately had to declare bankruptcy. The house was also auctioned off by the court, and they moved out soon after, having reportedly rented a place outside. But not long after, that woman divorced him. This time, it was the scumbag dad who desperately refused to divorce. Unexpectedly, the woman outright said the child wasn't his but another man's. It was just that the other man had no money, so she ended up with him. Now he's become penniless too, so it makes no difference who she's with. She might as well go back to that man. At least he's the child's biological father and won't mistreat the kid. The scumbag father, who had been fantasizing about making a comeback, was completely crushed by this blow. He thought that even if the company was gone, at least he still had a complete family. Only to find out that the child he had raised for years wasn't his own. He must have been cursed by that bitch Tina. I remember that the financial problems in the scumbag father's company also happened in my previous life, but the consequences weren't as severe. At that time, a business partner invested a large sum of money in him, helping him overcome the crisis. The business partner took a great liking to me and wanted to adopt me as his goddaughter. Hoping I could mentor his underachieving son academically, he went to great lengths to transfer his son to the same school as me, making us desk mates. Unfortunately, before any progress could be made, I died. It seems I'm not the so-called jinx that the abusive mother claimed me to be. In many ways, I've been the glue holding this broken family together. In this lifetime, without me, their lives fell apart completely. Some ended up in prison, others went bankrupt, but with me in their lives, Mom and Dad became more driven than in their previous life, saying they wanted to create a better living environment for their only daughter. Their goal is to ensure their daughter can live comfortably even without working, relying solely on them. Dad has successfully shed the title of associate professor and become the youngest full professor at his university. Mom's clothing store is also thriving, and she's preparing to open a branch, but I could never be content living as a freeloader. Getting a second chance like this is a rare opportunity not everyone gets. In my previous life, there were so many things I didn't have time to accomplish, so many dreams left unfulfilled. Do not waste the gifts of heaven. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.